After my husband went out, I found a notebook in the entrance and checked the contents. Inside were records in my husband's handwriting, detailing his love affairs with his mistress. I was able to meet her today. Since we can't see each other often, we exchanged a lot of love, which made me happy. My wife hasn't noticed at all, which is amusing. I want to divorce her and be with my lover soon, but there are many obstacles, and it's difficult. Then, the notebook had photos of my husband with a woman holding a newborn baby, both smiling broadly. Additionally, a partially completed divorce application form was tucked inside. I sighed at my husband's foolishness in openly keeping evidence of his affair and his seriousness about his mistress. Since the notebook also contained many entries expressing his desire to divorce me, I took photos of it as evidence of his infidelity before placing it back where I found it. I understand. I'll do as you wish, I muttered, gathering all my necessary belongings and leaving the house, heading to the home of his mistress. My name is Mary. My husband, John, is an engineer at an electrical equipment company. We married in our early 20s, and I'll be turning 30 this year. Reflecting on the time John and I have spent together, I felt a deep sense of nostalgia. Though it was just the two of us, our life changed a few years ago when my MIL began needing significant involvement in my life. John's mom, Kelly, suddenly fell ill and became in need of care. She was a considerate person and didn't want to burden John, her only son, and me, his wife. I knew that someday I'd end up being a burden to my son as I aged, but I'm only in my early 60s. I never expected to need John and Mary's help so soon. I think it's best for me to move into a care facility so I won't be a bother. Since John's father had already passed away, we were her only source of support. After discussing it with me, John conveyed our decision to his mom. I understand your reluctance, Mom. But the reality is that your savings alone won't be enough to sustain a life in a facility indefinitely. My salary isn't that high, and Mary only works part-time. We can't afford the costs of a facility. So, we've decided that Mary will take care of you. Mary will be burdened. She's working hard too. It's okay. I'll do whatever I can. I wanted to repay her for all the kindness she had shown me since our marriage. Ultimately, she agreed to our persuasion, but with one non-negotiable condition. She insisted on not living with us. She wasn't the type to torment her daughter-in-law, but she didn't want to intrude on our lives. Respecting her wishes, we moved her to a place close to our home. I started visiting her almost daily after my part-time job, helping her as needed. Though she didn't need constant care, she did require occasional assistance, making it manageable while living separately. Mary, thank you so much. I'm so fortunate to have you as my daughter-in-law. Her words always comforted me. However, I felt guilty that, even after turning 30, I still hadn't given her a grandchild. John was a very busy man, constantly called to the office whenever there were electrical issues, leaving the care of his MIL mostly to me. John was often away, whether it was daytime or nighttime, weekdays or weekends. Thus, I spent more time with my MIL, deepening our bond. John is too busy. I'll tell him he needs to cherish you more. Her words were my solace. Being the wife of a busy husband can be lonely. One day, I realized John had forgotten his lunch. I woke up early to make it, and I wanted him to have it, so I decided to take it to his office. When I arrived at John's office, I called out, "Excuse me." I had met his colleagues before. John's boss, who came out from the small office, looked startled upon seeing me. "Why are you here, Mary? Is everything okay?" His loud voice drew the attention of the remaining coworkers, who knew I was John's wife and were equally surprised. I wondered why it was so unusual for me to visit. I turned to my husband's boss, planning to leave the lunchbox and head back. "Thank you for always supporting my husband. He seems to have forgotten his lunch, so I came to drop it off." No, your husband is off today, isn't he?" "What?" "He told me he needed a day off to attend his wife's delivery. Are you okay, being here alone? Should I call a taxi for you?" I was dumbfounded as his boss stammered. I wasn't pregnant, so there was no way I could be delivering a baby. Besides, John had left this morning saying he was going to work. Yet, he had taken a day off from work, lying about attending his wife's delivery. Confused, I assured his boss there was no problem and that I might have misunderstood something, then returned to my car, feeling dejected. John often left suddenly, claiming work emergencies. But was it really work? Many questions arose, and I realized I couldn't continue our marriage with this distrust. After researching where to turn to in such situations, I discovered I could hire a detective. Without hesitation, I decided to commission an investigation into John's behavior. A month after that chaotic and sorrowful day, I found a notebook in the entrance after John left. It must have fallen from his bag. Casually flipping through it, I laughed. There were photos of John smiling broadly with a woman holding a newborn baby. Additionally, a partially completed divorce application form was tucked inside. I sighed at John's foolishness in openly keeping evidence of his affair and his seriousness about his mistress. Curious, I checked the notebook further. It had daily and weekly pages. Diligently keeping a diary, John had recorded his love affairs in his handwriting. It was a day to meet Amy. We could exchange a lot of love since we don't see each other often, and I'm happy. Mary hasn't noticed at all, which is amusing. I want to divorce and be with Amy soon, but there are many obstacles. There were also many entries expressing his desire to divorce me, so I photographed the notebook as evidence of his infidelity before placing it back where I found it. I understand. I'll do as you wish, I muttered, gathering all my necessary belongings and leaving the house. I swiftly filled out the divorce form I had taken from the notebook and submitted it to the court. As John wished, I divorced him and left. The next day, I stayed at a nearby hotel, searching for a new place while working my part-time job. I was working as usual when my phone in my pocket kept ringing. I ignored it since I couldn't answer during work, but during a break, I checked and saw missed calls. It was, of course, John. "Hello, Mary. What are you doing? I came home to find the house empty. You didn't come home last night either. What happened?" "Something did happen. You dropped your notebook in the entrance, didn't you? I saw what was inside and did as you wished." "What? You looked inside it. It's your fault for dropping something so personal. I prepared and submitted the divorce form as you wished, so enjoy your life with Amy." Wait. We need to talk. This can't end so one-sidedly." John had a point, and I couldn't let him be happy with Amy. Agreeing to his proposal, we arranged to meet at a cafe a few days later. At the appointed time, I arrived to find John already seated, looking pale. "Why is Mom here too?" "You caused trouble for Mary, so I came to hear everything directly." "Explaining twice is troublesome, isn't it?" I wasn't alone. I hadn't called my MIL, but I had informed her of the situation to thank her for everything because we would divorce. She was furious and insisted on coming with me when I told her John had called me to meet. Having my MIL, who supported me, by my side was reassuring. I knew John, since childhood and even now, couldn't defy his mom. Feeling I had the strongest ally, I sat across from John with my MIL and immediately pulled out a thick manila envelope from my bag. "What's this?" "Actually, I've suspected you've been having an affair for about a month, so I hired a detective. I received the investigation report just recently. They said they didn't have any trouble gathering evidence since you met so often. I must have been a fool to believe you were working." I laid out photo after photo of the evidence of his affair before the stunned John. There were various pictures, from him walking with Amy to him cuddling their baby. Seeing them, it was laughable how they looked like a happy couple, despite their infidelity. It wasn't just John and I looking at the photos. When I finished displaying the pictures, my MIL slammed the table and raised her voice. "What is this? Explain yourself." Cornered by the damning evidence and my MIL's stern demand, John reluctantly began to speak. "My affair partner is Amy, a clerk from the same company. This child is definitely mine. We did a DNA test to be sure. John, it looks like you've been buying expensive things for the child. Didn't you say you didn't have enough money to put me in a facility for economic reasons?" In the evidence photos, John was repeatedly seen handing Amy brand-name shopping bags. Given my MIL's valid question, I waited for John's response. Resigned, he retorted. Yes, I was spending money on them. That's why I didn't have any left. Why should I spend money on a wife and mother I don't love? It's more meaningful to spend it on a woman I love and my own child. You're truly the worst. What are you talking about? Now you can see your grandchild's face. Isn't that good? Mary's divorced now, so I'll bring Amy and the baby here openly. Look forward to holding your grandchild. You've really become the lowest kind of person. As your mother, I'm ashamed. I disown you. I don't need to hold any grandchild. My MIL stood up, speaking harshly. Seeing me still silent, she said, Mary, why don't you come with me? I nodded and, telling John, you're truly the worst. Goodbye, left the cafe with my MIL. That night, I visited the apartment where Amy lived. Though I felt guilty because the child was innocent, seeing John's attitude earlier made me determined to expose everything. Who is it? When I rang the intercom, Amy answered, keeping the chain on. I introduced myself loudly from the diaphragm. Good evening. Sorry to drop by unannounced. I'm John's wife, whom you've been having an affair with. We've divorced now, so don't worry. I came to report that. Please. Don't shout. A figure approached from behind the panicked Amy. My loud voice must have reached inside. Who is it? A visitor? Daniel. Behind Amy appeared her husband, Daniel. According to the detective's investigation, Amy was married. He was the CEO of an IT company and quite wealthy. John and Amy were having a double affair. The door closed momentarily, voices of an argument inside could be heard, and then Daniel opened the door for me. I'd like to hear the details. Please come in. Realizing this wasn't a conversation to have in public, I was invited in and we began talking across the dining table. Daniel had a frighteningly serious expression, and next to him, Amy was pale and trembling. I heard you. Is it true you're the wife of Amy's affair partner? Yes, it's true. I have evidence. Laying out the same evidence I showed John earlier on the dining table, Amy immediately tried to gather and hide it with her hands. Stop! Don't look! Then, bursting into tears, she clung to Daniel. Wait, Daniel! Please, it's not what it looks like. I don't want a divorce. Good grief. Amy, you're incredibly selfish. You pushed John to divorce but don't want to divorce yourself? I never said I wanted a divorce. Don't lie. I'm not lying. John is the type to keep a diary. He was so happy that he wrote about the day you asked him to divorce. Showing them a photo of the diary entry on my phone, Amy repeatedly denied it while crying. Daniel, exasperated, took a few photos in hand and told Amy. You probably only saw me as a source of money. I suspected something but didn't think you were cheating. Daniel's financial power is immense. Amy must have wanted to keep Daniel's money while also having John's love. So she made me, John's wife, the obstacle, pushing for a divorce and getting me to sign the papers. Her arrogance is infuriating. Through her tears, Amy pointed at me. It's all lies from this woman. Pure delusion. The photos and that diary could easily be faked. Then I'll present audio evidence. It's hard to fake someone's voice, so listen carefully. I coldly started the recording app on my phone and tapped the play button. It was the recording of my conversation with John, revealing his confession from earlier. Considering claiming alimony in the divorce, I had recorded our conversation, thinking it might be useful. My affair partner is Amy, a clerk from the same company. This child is definitely mine. We did a DNA test to be sure. As soon as Daniel, who had been surprisingly calm, heard that part, he shot up, knocking over his chair, and confronted Amy. You? Is that child not mine? I never thought I'd be deceived to this extent. It's a lie. That child is Daniel's. I always said how much the baby looks like you. Every time you said that, I always thought the baby didn't look much like me. The man in the photo. John, was it? Now that you mention it, the baby has his eyes. You deceived me even about the child. How can you expect me to forgive this? The baby is really yours, Daniel. Please believe me. Your affair partner said he did a DNA test. In this situation, he has no reason to lie, but you have plenty of reasons to lie. You just don't want to lose your money source, right? You'll need plenty of money to raise the child. Good luck with that. No, please. Don't say divorce. The only one I love is you, Daniel. How can you say that in front of these evidence photos? It's disgusting. Furious, Daniel banged on the photos spread out on the dining table, shouting at Amy. Get out now. And take your child with you. That kid isn't mine. I'll be demanding a lot of alimony. Amy, now sobbing uncontrollably, collapsed onto the table, crying loudly, but Daniel packed her belongings and pushed her out. As I collected the photos, Daniel deeply apologized to me. His sincere apology for his wife's infidelity cooled my anger, and I also apologized for John's actions. When Daniel saw me out of the apartment, I felt a sense of relief, knowing I had thoroughly avenged John's beloved woman. Watching Amy get dumped by Daniel right before my eyes gave me a feeling of satisfaction. After being thrown out of the apartment, Amy turned to John. She couldn't move from hotel to hotel with a baby in tow. John took in Amy and the baby, as was to be expected. After all, the child was John's. Amy, of course, got a divorce. She retained custody of the child. While I thought John and Amy might build a happy home, life didn't go smoothly for the two who had destroyed two families. John continued working at the company for a while, but both his boss and colleagues knew about his affair with Amy. With both of them divorced, they faced increasing hostility and gossip at work, which John couldn't bear, leading to his resignation. Unable to find new employment, John became a recluse, leaving Amy to find a new job to support their living expenses and child. Switching from office work, Amy started working at a nightclub to earn enough money. For Amy, who had relied on Daniel's income, working was pure hardship. John and Amy constantly fought, far from building a happy home. I learned this in detail from Kelly, John's mom. Though John never turned to me for help, he still sought his mom's assistance after the divorce. But Kelly was firm. I told you, we're done. I'm not going to take care of a worthless son. Clean up your own mess. She resolutely sent him away. Currently, I've placed Kelly in a nursing home at my expense. Though she was very reluctant, I insisted firmly, and she agreed. To me, Kelly was much more family than John ever was. I visit her every day after my part-time job. She's happy not to feel lonely. My foolish son is exasperating, but I'm grateful he brought Mary into my life. She says cheerfully at every opportunity. Through Kelly, I'm set to have a matchmaking meeting with a grandson of one of her friends. Kelly's friend is kind, and her grandson, whom I saw in photos, is a fine young man. It's not a formal match, but a casual tea meeting. I hope meeting him will be a new beginning for my life.